Hey everyone, welcome to I Don't Like Murder. I'm Rita, and this is my co-host Jenny. Hey Jenny.
Hi Rita, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Today we are going to talk about the, just one second. Hey everyone, welcome to I Don't Like Murder. I'm Rita. This is my co-host Jenny. Hey Jenny.
Hi Rita.
Hey. So today I'm bringing us a case about Savannah Gold. Savannah Gold was murdered in Jacksonville, Florida a few years ago, and I wanted to go over the intricacies of the case, how it happened, who her killer was, but mainly talk to Jenny about a theme that I find interesting and compelling, which is when somebody just disappears and goes off their regular routine and path, and they wind up murdered. They have no story. We don't know their story, so it's all putting all the pieces together. And a lot of the time, when somebody is murdered, we hear the story from the perpetrator, the person who killed Samantha. So
yeah.
We're starting this over. Hey everyone, welcome back to I Don't Like Murder. I'm Rita. This is my co-host Jenny. Hey Jenny.
Hi Rita, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. So today's case is about Savannah Gold and Lee Rodarte. Lee Rodarte was convicted of murdering Savannah a few years ago in Jacksonville, Florida. The case is interesting to me because it goes along with the theme of when someone just disappears, goes off their path, comes up missing, and then subsequently their body is found and they've been murdered. We really only have the police investigation, the last moments friends and family saw someone, and then once the police narrow down their investigation to the perpetrator or the potential murderer, it's their story. So I want to talk a little bit about that with Jenny today, talk about the case. It's already been adjudicated, but I'm passionate about bringing and honoring the stories of people whose life who aren't on earth with us anymore, but that the stories that they'll never be able to tell. We'll never know for sure. It's always putting the pieces together and then honoring the family that lost Savannah. So you ready to go, Jenny?
I'm ready. It sounds interesting.
Yay. It's terribly sad, and it is interesting. And one reason, unfortunately, there's lots and lots of cases for us to talk about, but this one happens to be two employees of the Bonefish Grill in Jacksonville, Florida. One was the culinary director or the lead chef, and that is Lee Rodarte. And Savannah Gold was an employee server. She worked at the Bonefish Grill as well. Now, Savannah, based on everyone that knew her, family adored her, everyone loved her, staff members thought she was amazing. She was that person you hear about, the ray of sunshine. And she was very young. She's 21 years old. The last time her family saw her, she was putting her uniform on to go to work. And then the case unfolds with she's supposed to be at work at 5 o'clock. She doesn't show up for work, and her coworkers call her parents and say she didn't show up for work. That's weird. And they're saying, wait, she just left. She should be at work. And a little bit later, they get the parents and then her brother get very cryptic text messages saying, I've fallen in love with somebody, I'm running away, lots of misspelled words, neither text talk about or talk with the cadence that she would text, because you and I text back and forth all the time. I'm sure you could tell based on what emojis I use, the way I talk via text, that it would be, you would know this is not coming from Rita, right? Mm-hmm. So the minute the family gets that, now they're terrified and they call the police. And so the police go to the restaurant and subsequently are able to get the CCTV tape. And so what the tape showed is Savannah driving up, getting out of her car, then going to another car, getting in to the car, and that car having movement. The tape is picking it up, the recording's picking it up.
Yeah.
Then a male getting out of that car, going over to her car and slashing the tires, or the front tires.
That's quick work for police. They rarely move that fast. That's amazing.
So that's what the video shows, and there's all these different details of the case. This is all over. There's a lot of references to the case on social media. I think it's a Dateline. The gentleman, once they finally get him in the interrogation, he finally admits, and then he tells the story, his story, not what truly happened, which was compelling as well, because on both sides, based on what he says happened, and then again the adjudication of it, his confession, and then of course he pulls his confession back, and then he tells a different story. So, which doesn't kind of what makes sense, but we'll get there in a few minutes. So that's what the police have. And then of course they're going and scoping everything, talking to the friends and the co-workers, and they get a little bit of info that says, yeah, they seem to be dating, but kind of on and off, like they'd see each other. And this is where you come in, Jenny, because the working in restaurants, working in kitchens, there is kind of a community of people who work in restaurants, and it wouldn't be unusual for people to hook up or connect up with each other.
Happens all the time.
Does
it's probably more common than it's not common.
Right. Just because, especially with the hours, some of those days you're working in restaurants 10, 12 hours all night long. I have a former coworker who managed a high-end restaurant in San Francisco. And it's, you get to the restaurant because the big evening was the big time for customers, but you get there at 2:00 in the afternoon and you may not leave. And then you got your customers, and then, so it's almost like a 24-hour day job. And there's a high level of burnout, alcoholism, really interesting.
Yeah.
Just 1 second. So there's a theme with, I think, different work communities, whether it's the medical profession or, or just different, or lawyers or police officers, almost a group of people who have high stress, and working in the food industry, cooking, and those teams, because it's nonstop. Either you're prepping for your next meal to serve, or you're serving it, or you're cleaning it up, and then you're preparing for the next day, right? So you're always working, and yet it is a skill that a lot of people can come in entry level and work, right? Just try with when you start in the restaurant, a busboy, clearing tables, being a server, but doing the salad first, or boiling the noodles or whichever, and you can work your way up with very little, maybe formal training. But what's interesting about how decisions are made in these do you agree that working in a restaurant, especially the higher end ones or the medium end ones, there can be a lot of pressure. There can be a lot of stress involved in.
It's different stress depending on what level of restaurant you're in, because the pressure to be perfect in higher end is what the stress is, and in the lower end it's busier and there's higher turnover. So to get it out as fast as you can, there is it's different pressures, but it's definitely high stress all the way around.
So what's interesting about Lee Rodarte, based on his interrogation, is he had a bit of a rough childhood, and he got into working in restaurants. And by the time of the murder, he had gotten to be into a culinary director. So he was the leader of this kitchen.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty common for people to.
Right.
Yeah.
so now all of a sudden going from, so he has attained what he wanted. And from just saying, I didn't think I'd ever get anywhere in life, to I'm in a good place here.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the choice that he makes, and this is based on his story as to why things went down the way they did. But this is, I was telling Jenny a little bit ago that I was rewatching his interrogation because I still don't understand, hence why we have this show, because we're trying to talk through it and try to figure out what can't be figured out, or why people react the way they do. But he says that they were dating and she was a heavy drug user. That's his story. And the parents are, saying, no, that's not true.
She was probably a drug user.
Right.
Heavy might be give or take, but
his story is she gets to work. He wasn't scheduled for work, so he was just in the parking lot, which could look to me like he was lying in wait for her. He says that she was going to blow the cover and tell the company, and the company has a huge rule about not dating subordinates.
Yes,
which most companies do have.
Yeah.
But so, and that's kind of the theory, even though it doesn't quite make sense to say, if you're dating her, just break up with her and tell HR, we had a short thing, and tell me what I need to do to clear this up, get a mark on my record.
I'm going to say that I don't think I've ever worked in a restaurant where it was always like no fraternizing with your employees, but every single restaurant I've ever worked in, it's happened with at least one manager. And generally, as long as you keep it quiet and it doesn't affect anything at work, no one cares.
Right.
But I mean,
but then thinking of it from a corporate, so say these chain franchise stores,
yeah,
they probably would come down pretty tough on the manager or director, because they would be saying, hey, if that employee, as your subordinate, files a complaint, it's not going to go good for you. Right. Because that's not good, because it's just, and we don't want that with our reputation that we hire people who do stuff like that. Now, but I agree. I think that happens a lot. His story was he'd broken up with her and she wasn't happy about it. And so she was going to tell everybody. And that was the first part of the story. And that she came to his car and then she started, she was looking for heroin. And then she jumped in the car and attacked him. Which you can't really see. You just saw that the car was moving, like a struggle was happening, right? The fact that she ended up, that after the struggle happened, after he slashed her tires, he got back into the car and he drove away.
Yeah.
And then when he finally admitted it, he led them to where he said, took her body. The wild thing is, mentally, how do you go from the girl I was dating is going to tell everybody that I was dating her, and the only solution is to kill her, right? So there's a bit
that doesn't make sense. I mean, this is pure speculation on my part, but I'm assuming if she was doing drugs, he was doing drugs. Also, being in a restaurant, that's like almost a given that he was doing some sort of drug and probably heavily abusing alcohol.
It's
not
possible,
100%.
Right.
I mean, not that's definitely not an excuse to kill someone.
Right.
But definitely, like, if she was any type of a drug user, I can almost guarantee that he was also, for several reasons. And not that that's an excuse to kill somebody, but when you're in an altered state, sometimes things happen differently than they would if you were sober.
Right. Or so if he's telling the story because he gets to set the narrative because he's alive.
Yeah.
So if he's telling the story, he may be addicted to drugs in his brain and the way it functions, and paranoia, all those things.
Yeah.
There's no stories about how, and I will say during his interrogation, he was very clear-eyed And then after there's this little point at the very end when the police let him, after he confesses and the police leave him alone, and he's like talking to himself saying, you totally screwed up, you totally screwed up, to himself, in which I think the world would agree, yes, you totally screwed up. I think, how did you get here? Right? How did you get here? And because it doesn't, none of it makes sense.
Yeah, I have never murdered anyone, and I probably won't, but I don't understand how you go from like nothing. How did he kill her? Was it strangulation?
Yes, and bear with me. He says, and I'm looking because I want to get the detail, because it was pretty much strangulation, and then the autopsy couldn't determine the exact cause of death, but it was described as a violent murder. So, and that's why,
Oh, did he claim self-defense that she was attacking him? So
that was a part of the adjudication. So he does this big confession, and then when it's time to have his lawyer say, what were you thinking? You should never talk to police.
Right.
You should call a lawyer. They came back with not guilty, and they did the stand your ground law.
Wow.
That Florida is really known for. And so, yes, he said that she could say whatever she wanted, and she went to the car to attack him.
Yeah. And
he tried to push her out, and then she overtook him. Now, of course, this is just my perspective based on seeing the two of them. This teeny petite, tiny one, it just, if you just watch the video, you can see that it looks like he's summoning her to the car, because there's no sound and you have to just make up the story. But based on her ending up dead, is that why is he sitting in the parking lot? He's not scheduled to work. She's going over to the car right when she's driving up because she's scheduled to work.
Yeah.
She, gets in and, opens the door, pokes her head in, and then it looks like she's being pulled into the car. That doesn't look like she's there to beat him up.
Right.
And so the fact that he wants all that moving and shaking in the car looks like the violent murder. He gets up and slashes her front tire. Why? I don't know.
That doesn't even make any sense at all. Like, why?
To make sure the car, or is he thinking, because he's not thinking, or thinking this is the alibi, right?
Yeah.
She got a flat tire, somebody helped her, and some stranger picked her up and then took her away.
Yeah.
If we could, but we'll never know. We'll have our own narrative for his story.
Yeah.
But by the time he first tells everything, because the police have caught him all over the place, then he confronted her because she said, that's the big party. She's like, he said she took heroin and she was asking for drugs, and then her autopsy shows she had no drug in her system, because he said she was high on drugs or something to that effect. And there's, and then she was feeling she had just taken heroin. She was feeling really paranoid. And then that's when she attacked him.
Yeah.
Of course, and so he says she struck him and he fought back, which based on the autopsy of the violent murder, the fact that she had no heroin in her system, the fact that it looks like, just as if you got, somebody 4 car, parking spots down, you get out of your car, it's like, hey, come on over here. It's like, that's what it looks like. It's like, that's weird. You're over there. Okay, I'll go over. And then you open the door. So, but it was, his story was that he grabbed her neck and he tried to hold her, and then he heard her neck pop. And so
why would you try to grab someone by the neck to hold them back?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense, really. Right.
And so the court rejected the fact that he said he feared for his life. So, but again, this is the adjudication process because they're trying to undo the fact that the death penalty maybe, or life in prison kind of thing, is that trying to do, and because he said, yes, I did it. And of course, we've watched different police interrogations. These guys are trained in this. And so you can spend 8 to 23 days if you want telling the different version of the different story until you get some indicators until you just give up.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, I killed her. But he didn't talk in his interrogation about feeling attacked. And so interesting. So he was, he puts in that plea, the court, once the court rejects, that fear for your life thing, he accepts a sentence of 40 years. So it doesn't go to the jury. He pleads guilty to second-degree murder, and so the big thing is, and that's what I want to talk about, there's so many big things in this, is that it's such a jolt and a trauma to the system to go, oh, I'm on my way to work, I'm going to my work, and then it makes the world look like an incredibly scary place, right? And then it's that whole thing with she's going to work, and so here's a young woman who doesn't have to tell her parents every single guy she's ever dated in her life, right? Or if it's that group dynamic of, oh, we're all going out, and a couple strays off into the corner and goes, oh, maybe we should go see each other. Nobody makes a big fuss about it, right? And then something happens, but like her family doesn't really know. Her friends kind of knew peripherally that maybe they had hooked up, but in this community of, like you said, there's an expectation, things happen, and nobody pays a mind, that there's no mention from her or her family that this guy means anything to her in her life. Like she's so young making plans, and yet the balance of violence and the fact that he ended her life, that's what I just can't square. So many things, part of it of going, so he felt threatened that he could lose his job because he was dating a subordinate. And so the solution is what? Because
I honestly, like, going over all this in my head and having experience in this industry, I feel like there was something else going on, because because it sounds like it was more of like a super casual, or maybe even just a hookup situation, that they weren't actually dating. And like, that could have easily, even if she had went and told on him, I feel like it probably could have been like rectified way less than him losing his job. So it almost seems like there's something, like she knew something else. There was some kind of criminal activity he was doing that maybe she was going to say something about, or some, because the rest of it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up that, like, oh, somebody you slept with a couple times is going to tell your boss that you did. Like, that could have easily, especially since it was over between them. Like, it could have been like, yeah, we started to, it didn't work out, moving on. That could have easily. I feel like there has to be something else that we don't know about, or he's just completely psychotic, and
that's the mystery, because if you watch what he says, and the interrogation's the only conversation that he has that's not going to be guided by attorneys who tell him don't talk, or only talk when we tell you to, is the interrogation. The guy seems smart, really smart. And I didn't look too much. The Bonefish Grill, I'm pretty sure it's a chain, but it's a higher end.
It's a chain.
But it's probably a higher end fish place, I think. So I guess I'm thinking about Yelp when they put the dollar signs. Maybe it's $3 signs instead of 4, but it's probably not 2.
That's probably pretty accurate.
So it's like, it's a higher end, so it's good. It's a step up from maybe a Golden Corral, which is probably $2 signs, just in terms of the franchises. But he had a future, and he was able to run the kitchen, to be the culinary director. That's got to be a big position. So he did have a lot to lose, And so you brought up a really good point. Maybe there was some sort of, which we'll never know, so we can just speculate.
Right.
Maybe there was some criminal stuff going that she found out about.
That's also highly likely in a restaurant situation. But
Right?
I just feel like it was an overreact. If this is what it is, it was a huge overreaction on his part, because unless there were other issues with him at work, then he wouldn't have gotten fired for that. There has to be something, or if he did have a lot of other issues at work, then maybe he would have gotten fired, or maybe this is a pattern and he's done with this with people in the past and gotten caught, and it was, you are continuing to have this behavior, so you will lose your job. But even at losing a job, like, that's not a reason to kill someone.
Right.
I don't know.
That mystery of how do you take that leap, and the
Yeah.
fact that, and the tough part is, it would be like the parents going, oh, she's going to work. She's
Right.
21, right? So she's living her life.
Yeah.
Still living with her parents.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm gonna go do my thing, because she's off living her life, living with her parents. So it's not just working, but she goes in and out of the house, I'm sure, because she's 21.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she's the very beginning of her life. She's not going to share every date she goes on. It just doesn't happen that way. And yet there was no signs that she was living a risky life, or, and then just the fact that instead of it being she was high on, say, ecstasy or something like that. But heroin's a pretty tough drug.
Yeah.
That nobody, so it was just, so that kind of makes me, when we talked about, what is he, is he doing some illegal trafficking of stuff? And again, we can only speculate, we never know. Yeah. Did she, by knowing him, fall into something that, I don't know. It's
all of that's possible. But I just, my gut feeling is that there's something bigger here that no one knows about, that she's caught him doing something illegal, or something worse than going on a few dates with somebody. Like, I don't, or he's completely psychotic. It's got to be one or the other, because I don't see, it doesn't add up to me on any level that you would murder somebody over this. Like, my gut is that he was doing something illegal and she found out about it or knew about it or whatever, and she threatened to say that. And that might be his story, is just, oh, she was going to say about this, but the real story is maybe he was dealing heroin or something, I don't know what, obviously.
Or he was paranoid. And she wasn't going to say anything. He just knew that she knew. Yeah.
That's very possible, especially if he was doing any kind of drugs, because that can make you paranoid.
And again, all speculation.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't make sense. Murder never makes sense, but it doesn't make sense that her profile and her story ended that day. And we only have her family and friends that, and believe me, there's so many stories about this, because the whole thing is, it's amazing to have videotape of the, unbeknownst to anybody yet, there was an actual murder happening. And then the murderer actually slashing her tires and then lying about everything. But there's, because just for the shock value, people want to talk about it and try to parse it out. And again, I'm looking at it from that angle of, well, she can't tell a story, but the story that she lived, what people knew of her, the gap between what he says and how she lived her life, just, it doesn't make sense. So again, so again, that's why we speculate to go, it had to be more the person who is able to draw somebody in, because you would hope to think that if you had to defend your life, because we have to put our head in the mind of a murderer, to go pull somebody into your car to say, I'm mad at you, don't do this, right? I don't want you to do this. Or someone coming at you to attack you in the car, and then you just happen to pop their neck to go, I was defending myself. My first inclination would be, I can't believe I survived it, and I'm calling the police because now I have a dead person in my car. My first inclination wouldn't be to get up and slash the tire of the person coming over and then drive off and bury the body.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, my feeling across the board about murderers who go dump a body, hide a body, whatever, and then claim some crap like this of, oh, it was an accident. If it was an accident, then you call the police or the ambulance and say, oh, I think something happened. We were fighting. I heard something. She's not breathing. She seems weird. You don't go dump a body. Like, why is that your reaction? That to me screams guilt there. It screams guilt.
Right. And then just the psychology behind the person who's capable of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then how quickly they're trying to remedy their freedom.
Yeah.
Because, definitely the walls are closing in. And then you're not as smart as you thought you were, because every parking lot, I see signs every time I go to some sort of a parking lot for retail.
Mm-hmm.
There are signs saying you're under surveillance all the time. I mean, please, and think. You're gonna,
yes.
There are cameras or there's surveillance somewhere, anywhere, but you didn't think of that. And then I almost, and I don't know, because I haven't been able to find the information, thinking, was he on drugs? Because really the decision he made, and then that whole, because the thing that threw me off is the slashing of her tire. Mm-hmm. That almost feels like it was planned. It looks like it was planned, right? Yeah. I mean, to go pull her over to the car, he knew where she'd be working. And then, so that's the thing that will drive me crazy forever, because we'll never, ever know, because he gets to tell the story. But what's really, in the end, devastating, that Savannah's no longer on earth, for her family and friends to love and her to live a full life. But her parents and her friends and extended family have really honored her. And, they turned her Facebook page into a memorial for her, and they just keep her spirit alive. And so that is amazing. And not only to honor her life, but honor her parents, her brother, her friends, because it's I can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
We talk about it, but the fact that she's not here, and yet again, her story is based on putting the pieces together, and then the ultimate teller of what happened, but not what really happened, but what happened from how he wants to protect his liberty.
Yes.
And then when it doesn't make sense, but again, the show's really just talking through what makes people do what they do. We don't know, because we can't figure it out. That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But and then just the points, the key points for me is to say, when, in the scary point is, you just go, oh, I'm going to work, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody saw it coming.
Yeah. You're just going to work.
Right. And no big things of, see, there's stories that you think, you have parents say, I told her, she's a grown adult, I told her that's a rough crowd. Nothing like that.
Well, and I just thought of the text that her family got, which is also not something you would do if you accidentally killed someone.
Right. And here in this, I've got a copy of it, because it's here, two texts. This one, it read to the parents, hey, I'm going to read through the misspells. I'll read what whoever him wrote it.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to tell you and Mom, I met a really great guy and we're running away together. I love him, and we are leaving tonight. I'll call you later when we get to where we're going. Out of the blue.
It doesn't sound like you're covering up a murder at all.
And then her brother got a text that says, hey, I quit. I'm leaving with my boyfriend. I can't do this SHIT anymore. Anything, I'm fine. Just wanted to get away. So I'm leaving for work. Bye, mom and dad. I'm getting dressed. That's when you see me. I'm on my way to work.
Mhm.
I drive to work. My car's in the parking lot, and then silence, and then the text comes through. I've given up everything. I'm leaving. I'm getting away. Come on.
Yeah, that's
Right. But that, him thinking, that's what tying into that, there's some planning to this, and then not being smart enough to go, that terrified the parents, thinking something's terribly wrong. First, the friends, the coworkers are saying she's not here. That's weird. That's how well we know her pattern. It's weird she's not here.
Yeah.
And we know her pattern so much, we're calling her parents. We are connected that much, we can call her parents.
Yeah.
Then the weird, because if I read that as a parent, I'd think she's been kidnapped, because that's the scariest thing, right? From her phone. And then technically, so the whole thing, so that's the part. And then, the insult to injury of just trying to say I was trying to protect my life, because all those things of going, okay, if she really was induced in, a drug haze trying to kill you and you had to defend yourself, then you pop her neck, and then your instinct is to text her family, slash her tires, and then go and dispose of her body.
The more we talk about this, the more I feel like they could have gotten first degree on him if they would have had the correct attorney.
Maybe.
Because there's so much,
right?
That when you add it all up together, it definitely was no accident. This is no accident.
Right. And yet, especially, so if you think about it, and this would be interesting, get an attorney from Florida on someday, is to say, what are the laws like in the state of Florida? And what's the alternative, right? Because would you, an attorney, this defense attorney would probably look at him and go, take the 40, dude. Because that's behind the scenes before it's even brought to trial. The prosecutor's saying, yeah, we got this. We got a confession, and now you got this. Come on. And then, so we're going to go for the whole enchilada. So maybe that was on the table, first degree.
Probably.
Premeditated, right? And then it was, can we give this guy, because he'll be 70, anywhere between 72 and 75 if he does the full 40. And so it's interesting from that point of view, but the more we talk about it, the more it's like, what happened?
I know. I keep going back to things like, wait,
but again, and I keep pulling to string on it and going, but the story, really, the focus with everybody almost is that camera showing it happening. That's a shock. And then him, and it's really led by, which is the theme, is led the way it's presented in all these different crime shows. It's about his story, and then disproving his story, right? Because I guess we're all mini detectives, and yet, like we talk about, it's like, well, what about the victim? Where's his or her story in this matter? And so it's just a different look at it. That's what the show's about, is just a different point of view to go, if the premise is all of these stories are based on the confession and or feeding small details, because just getting part of the judicial system, which is everything, if I committed the crime, everything that I'm going to tell you is going to try to minimize the amount of my liberties being restricted by going to prison.
Well, nobody's gonna
right. So that's gonna be, once you've arrested me, I'm going to be telling you only, or through my attorney, only what you should know, because that's how it works, right? And so and then we get to the case of going, how do you only get 40 years? Well, probably, he pled to it, and that was the deal, because but really, Savannah Gold is, her story deserves to be told. Beautiful human being, loved by friends and family, and so even though she can't speak to us through her energy, her life, she has a show on a small YouTube channel talking about her, and how we may not know exactly each and every step, but just to honor the fact that the story's being told through the person who committed the crime, and we have questions, and we just want to honor you. So thank you, Jenny, for listening. I'll keep researching because it's a story. Again, I'll keep looking to see if I can see any of the court documents where the pleas going back and forth, and if it ever got far enough. It's really hard because, again, once everybody gloms on to those key things, it's like the confession, because almost it's if, getting back to our point of view, is that once we've got him or her, the criminal, the story kind of ends. But really it ends with them. They're still the star of the show versus the victim, the person who doesn't have a voice anymore. So that's what's hard to wade through a lot of these, just trying to do some research, is who the person was, and to go, yep, this is, and to be very distinct. This is his story of what he says happened. As we know, he's trying to save his skin. And then the interesting part of the judicial system, whether you do it in Florida, California, Indiana, Texas, they're all a little bit different. But thank you for listening. Thank you to our subscribers. If you like this video, please subscribe. We're having fun. Please like it. Do the YouTube thing with us. We should call it YouTube dance. I don't know. Once we figure it out, we'll have a better way, instead of just saying do the YouTube thing. But I've learned, of course, when people like the video, it helps with the algorithm, even though we have 6 or 7 or whatever, but people are watching our videos. So we're super thankful about it. And we're excited to bring you more stories. So that's all for my story today. Savannah Gold, honor you. Jenny, thank you for listening and giving your feedback. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.